Looks like I've got some cleaning to do. The first thing we want to do is pull everything apart. Take all your lids off, all your bits out, and place them into a bucket. Okay, all the tubes, filters, balls. You get a spanner, take all the caps off. Take the grommet off. And then I'm going to take the ball locks off too. Okay. And last but not least, my trusty old fermenter. Okay, so all I'm going to do now is fill them most of the way up with water. Just plain tap water will do. Now with these two, you'll notice the krausen line down through there, and you'll also see that there's quite a lot of yeast on the bottom of them as well. So that's what we're mainly concerned with getting rid of. And now that you've got some water in them, just give them a quick scrub with a cloth. That's got most of it. So these two, because we ferment in them, need to be really clean. So this one, my old fermenter, I haven't used it for about 2 years, but I'm going to put a brew on with it soon. So I want to get it nice and clean and ready for that. But it's pretty good. Just clean around the tops, around the threads. Now this one was only used for beer, so it's not going to be too bad. It's not going to have as much muck in it as the fermenters do. In the jug I've just got hot tap water. I add that to the fermenters last because particularly these clear fermenters don't like too much heat. So I put the cold water in first, then the hot tap water. And in here I've got my sodium bicarbonate mixture mixed up to the manufacturer's instructions. It's obviously going to take a few trips to fill these up. Get out of there, dingo dog. So the sodium bicarbonate mixture in here is way too strong for this amount of water, but that's because I'm spreading it out over 120 litres in these containers. Just top them up with a little more hot water. And now we just wait for 15 minutes and let it do its job. Now while that's happening, we're going to take all of these parts that we took off and took out before. Oh, there's a PRV on there. Just want to get that out as well. Okay. I'm going to put them in this bucket to soak. You can smell that ginger beer. Now these two I'm going to keep out and just give them a bit more of a wash. And now that they're clean, they go in the mix as well. While we're waiting for the sodium bicarbonate to do its thing and clean our fermenters, let me explain to you why we're going to this much trouble. You see, dirty fermenters can attract wild yeast and bacteria, and that's stuff we don't want in our brews, because that's what makes them go bad. Especially acetobacter, that's the bacteria that creates vinegar from alcohol. So if you've got a little bit of oxygen, some alcohol and acetobacter, chances are you're going to end up with vinegar. So to avoid that, we make sure everything is completely clean, and anything that's coming into contact with the beer or the wort is sanitized as well. So sanitizing is different to cleaning. Cleaning, you're just getting rid of all of the crud and the muck and everything, and making sure that the vessel is, and all your tools are nice and clean. Sanitizing actually kills any organics that are on there. So any bacteria, any wild yeast, anything that's still remaining there, sanitizing will get rid of. And that's where we use Stellar San. Everything goes into the sanitizer to make sure that it's clean. Now sanitizers are different to cleaners. The sodium bicarbonate I use will dissolve any organics either in the fermenter or on any of the bits and pieces that we've taken off. So the sodium bicarbonate cleans, gets rid of all that organic material. The sanitizer kills any germs that are left over. So there can still be a few germs left in there, a few bacteria left in there, and what we want to do is make sure that they're all gone as well, so that they don't infect our beer. And that's the next step in the cleaning process. So later today I'm going to put 2 beers down. So I'll need 2 fermenters, the airlocks, the pressure valves, anything that goes onto that fermenter or anywhere near that brew is going to get cleaned and sanitized, and that's the next step. So our 15 minutes is up, and from what I can see here, these 3 vessels, all good. This one still has some krausen left in it, and that's because I didn't clean it straight after I used it. So what I'm going to have to do with this one is empty everything out, soak it overnight, and then come back to it tomorrow. This one is looking pretty good. So I can't see any krausen left in there. There's lots of bubbling and foaming, which tells me that the sodium bicarbonate is doing its job. I mean, there's still bubbling in this one, but that krausen line hasn't disappeared yet, so it needs a bit more time. So we want to make sure, like I said before, that everything's absolutely perfectly clean. This one needs more time. All of our bits and bobs in here. Nice hot water. They're coming along well. Yep, lots of bubble action in there as well. I'll just turn that lid over because that's the lid that we're going to use. That's one of the fermenters, my old fermenter. A little bit of muck on there. Just scrape that off with the fingernail. And that can go back in. I won't be using this today, so it can have a little bit more time. And because it floats, it doesn't always make contact. So I've got to try and force it under something. Same as these balls, these things, the floats. They don't always make perfect contact because they float above the water. So just make sure that visibly it's all clean. And try and hide it under something. Apart from that, we're ready to go. So I'm just going to empty these two out and put their lids back on and put them all back together, and they can just wait until I'm ready to fill them again, and at that point I'll give them a rinse out and I'll sanitize them then. I don't need to do that today. This one and this one also going to get emptied out, but they're going to get sanitized now so that I can use them. And this one, yeah, needs a bit more time. So the next stage in the process is sanitizing, and because I'm only using these two fermenters and the keg today, that's all I'm going to sanitize, just them and the bits that go with them. So just sanitize your equipment as you're about to use it, and that way you'll know that it's always safe. Now what I've got here is 5 litres of water with 7.5 mils of Stella sand in it. And I've taken the water from inside the house. It's just plain cold tap water. And the reason I've done that is because we're on tank water here, and the house supply is filtered, but the yard supply isn't because it's on separate tanks. So I won't use the unfiltered water because it's bound to have little microbes and stuff in there, and you're just defeating the purpose by using that. So clean water, clean, fresh, cold tap water is all you need. Now all I'm going to do is pour a little bit into each of these containers, and that's all you need, because you don't need to fill them up. You just need a little bit. You're going to shake it around, you're going to turn it upside down, you're going to let it sit for 15 minutes again, and once you've done that, I'll shake it a couple of times during that 15 minutes just to make sure that everything is covered, and then everything else that I'm using is going to just sit in this bucket in the sanitizer. So let's start. So everything else that's been sitting in this bucket, I'm just going to make sure, just shake them off. Now all I need for this fermenter is just the lid, so that lid can just go straight on there. Check to make sure that the seal's on there. It is. Now these fermenters don't seal very well, not nearly as well as these do, but that's okay for what I'm going to be using it for. Now for this fermenter, I'm going to need the lid, make sure that you've got right into those threads. Just screw that on finger tight for now. It's very slippery, so you're not going to get a lot of purchase on it. And I'll grab that spanner later and tighten it up. Don't need that. So I'll need one of these. I'm just going to pop that in there. I'll need the tube. So that can just go down, and I'll push the tube down so that it pushes all the air out of it, and the sanitized liquid all the way through the tube. Now I'm also looking for a pressure relief valve for this one. You're not supposed to be here, Chantel. Come on. Come on. Hey. Yeah, down there. That's okay. I've just gone and tipped out the liquid from here, because as the sodium percarbonate dissolves all that organic matter, the water gets a bit murky and it's hard to see. So I can now see what I'm doing. Now that's where the gas post goes on, so that goes to the inside. We've got our grommet to go on here. Lucky catch. And everything that's been in the sodium percarbonate, because it's an alkaline solution, is quite slippery. So just be careful. And that goes to the out. So it's written on here, in, out, pushes down. So the gas posts, as you may or may not know, for corny kegs are different. And I can't tell the difference just by looking at them, especially seeing as I haven't got my glasses on. Okay. So this one needs to be tightened up a little. Not too much. You don't want to be struggling to get it off like I did with the other one. Okay, and now tighten these up. Okay, now make sure that that tube, when you put it in, is in the little dimple in the bottom. So the lid for the keg, we've got to put our pressure relief valve back in. Put the grommet back on. And then the lid goes on. Now give it a shake. Roll it round. So what I've done is I've put the keg back together, I've put the fermenter back together, I've put the lid on this fermenter. They just need 15 minutes every now and again, giving them a shake. We're probably about 10 minutes in. And this is the third time I've shook them up. Shook them up. Not Englishing today. I've put my pressure relief, or my pressure fermenting valve that goes on here together, but I'm not going to put it into the sanitizer because I don't want to get the pressure gauge wet. So what I'll do is I'll just give that a spray with some sanitizer as I'm about to put it on. I've got my airlock, okay, as you'll see, shaped like an S-bend in your plumbing, and that just makes sure that all the carbon dioxide that's being produced in there can come out, but nothing can get back in the other way. Okay. And what you do is you just fill up to the marks down there with sanitizing liquid and stick that on top of your fermenter. Okay. Spoons in here, and I've put the dip tube back together with the float. So that's just sitting here ready to go. So at the end of 15 minutes, these will be done. They'll get one more shake, and I'll just tip this liquid out. There will be some foam left in here, but like the saying goes, don't fear the foam. It's safe, it's brew safe, it's safe for you to ferment with, it's safe for you to put in your keg. You don't want to drink too much of it, it's got quite a strong taste, believe me. Yeah. The minute amount that's still in there isn't going to affect the flavour of your beer in any way. So tip it out, make sure everything's coated, everything's completely sanitized. But before we go, just remember, clean and sanitize, you've got to do both. What you use for cleaning isn't the same as what you use for sanitizing. They're two totally different products. They do two totally different things. Always follow the manufacturer's instructions when you're mixing up the chemicals, and stronger isn't necessarily better. Okay, so always follow the instructions. Don't mix it up stronger thinking that you're going to clean something quicker. Take your time, do it properly. So don't leave this unsealed once it's been sanitized. Okay, you want to keep that sanitation. I'll be using this later on this afternoon. I'll be putting a simple extract and a fresh wort beer on, and you'll see that episode coming up shortly. Remember, it helps the channel out if you like and subscribe, so please do that. Recommend the channel to your friends as well if they're into home brewing. Over the next few weeks, few months, we're going to be getting into some fairly in-depth topics, but we're going right back to the very start and building up step by step. So there's a lot of content coming out shortly. But for now, I've got a couple of fermentations to get to, so stay tuned. Hey Flame, what do you think? Whiskey for my men and beer for my horses? You do, oh yes, you do like a good beer, don't you?